Continuing with Mishnah 1. So we mentioned the Anshe Knesset Hagadola, the men of the Great Assembly, said three things. Last time we discussed the first one, which was to be deliberate in judgment, that we should take the time to make sure we analyze everything, especially if you're a judge. Things are not the same. Go very careful analysis. The second thing that they said was V'hamidu talmidim harbe, to establish many students. Many students, and the hamidu, also the word hamidu from the word omeid is to stand, so it's really to cause to stand many students. And there are a number of different angles to this three-word statement. First of all, there's a discussion, and there was a difference of opinion as to when you have in terms of, let's say, a yeshiva back in the day, should it be for everybody and anybody, or should it only be for let's call it the elite, those who really are, top of the line, going to be great scholars? And the Talmud even tells us that Rabban Gamliel did not let everybody into the Beis Medrash, into the study hall. It was only people who are, he said, tocho kavoro, those whose inside and outsides were the same, that they were. We didn't want. He didn't want people who were hypocrites, or people who are on the outside looked very righteous but maybe weren't so good on the inside. He was looking for the best, and there was there was a whole story there where he was ended up being temporarily deposed, and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, who took over, he let everybody in, and what they saw was not so much that the people who came in immediately were, call it, worthy, but they became better because they had gone through this experience, and they gained from it, and therefore there was value in that as well. And we also find similar, Hillel and Shammai also had a difference of opinion. Shammai also said only for those who are going to succeed and likely to become leaders, and Hillel said teach everyone. And Hillel's rationale was very simple. He said, you don't know who's going to be the ultimate leader. You don't know who's going to be that one person in 1,000. So you need to teach 1,000 in order to come out with the one, right? And not only that, everybody can gain from it as well. So we do have these two schools of thought, and this Mishnah is taking the approach that says we should have a lot of students, meaning everybody should be able to learn. Now, we also have to make a differentiation between having students, which is from the teacher's point of view, right? From you as a teacher, from you who's passing it on, we should be passing it on to many. We should be teaching many. You as the individual, as the learner, for sure you have a responsibility. You have your own responsibility to learn. That's regardless of someone else's responsibility to teach. So this Mishnah is not telling you that only some people should learn, because everybody has that obligation. It's now and part of it also is resources, right? Sometimes you don't have the resources to teach everybody. So maybe you'll say, okay, well, we'll have to limit it. And one of the approaches to that would be, you just do your thing, and the resources will show up. As we say, God will provide, right? Hashem will provide. We're not going to limit it to the limited number of people and say, oh, we can't do it for everybody. No, we're going to make it for everybody. So that's one angle. There was a question Rabbi Lau quotes. He quotes his father, who asked a question, which is, how is it possible that we just told you that there were differences of opinion in the sages, that Shammai or Rabban Gamliel, they were disagreeing with the Anshe Knesset Hagadola. They're here in our Mishnah, we're saying have a lot of students, and they said no, we should limit the number of students. So he explains that they were talking about the quality. It wasn't how. Of course, you should have a lot of students, but their concern was that if you have a student who is not a quality student, then that would be an issue. And you could say the Anshe Knesset Hagadola talking about the quantity. One of the other issues about quality, which is still always an issue, which is if you're running an institution and you have a lot of and you have various people in the institution, sometimes if you have a bad apple, it can ruin it for everybody else, right? So that factor still exists, and that is still a concern that many places have. And again, very difficult to weigh that one, but you have to, sometimes you do have to say, this person cannot be part of this. We can't let this person in because they're going to hurt everybody else. So there are situations as that as well. Rabbeinu Yonah points out in terms of this idea of teaching so many, is he said, he said, if you teach 1,000, so maybe you'll get 10 to excel. If you teach 10, maybe you'll get 2. And he's quoting from a source, and he says, you don't know again who's going to be the next one. He says it takes 1,000 to get a star, and you don't know who's going to be that person. So that's one idea again. I would say also in today's world, it's a little different. In today's world, where in order for a person to be Jewish and be able to live a Jewish life, you got to know something. It's not in maybe back in the day, there was you got it from just being in your home and being in the community, and you were able to really develop a lot. And today, it's not as easy to do that just by living in your home and getting it from your family. We're exposed to so much in the outside world that we really need. Everyone does need a Jewish education, and that every child needs a Jewish education, and every adult needs to continue their Jewish education. And really, the concept of having only the elite or only some certainly does not apply today. Another angle here, which is that it said "V'ha'amidu talmidim harbeit," you should stand them up. So one of the aspects of having a student is that it's not enough just to give them information. First of all, they have to be able to understand it. Right? If you've been in teaching, right? Teaching is not just telling the information, but it's making sure that the student is receiving the information. But even more than that, it's not just learning, but it's teaching them how to learn. It's teaching them how to stand up on their own. The goal is for the student to be able to eventually not have to rely on the teacher and to be able to stand on their own, right? And that's what V'ha'amidu talmidim harbeit is, to stand up many students. Your goal as a teacher is to develop students who are then able to go out and stand on their own. And another point that the Midrash Shmuel adds is, and we've mentioned this in other occasions, as a teacher, when you teach a student, you will actually improve yourself as well, right? By teaching others, you gain from it. You learn from teaching others, and it's going to be good for you in terms of the amount that you study will be greater because you have to learn to teach, and two, the depth of understanding that you have will be greater because not only do you have to read it, but you have to be able to explain it and explain it well so that someone else understands it. You have to make sure you understand it as well. So you end up getting, and also from questions and answers, we find, and we've discussed this many times, that when someone asks a question, makes us think, the teacher think in a different way they may not have thought of before, and then come up with an idea that they had not thought, or an angle of how to think about it that they had not thought of before. And therefore it increases the depth of the understanding of the teacher as well. Another important point here, and that is, especially again in today's world, is that as Jews, we need to understand who we are and what we are. And the only way for us to be able to do that is to be able to learn. So it is so much more important for us to teach our children, our students, etc., so that when they're faced with all of the things that are surrounding us, they're able to understand, yeah, I know why I'm Jewish. I know what it means to be Jewish. And therefore we can be proud of who we are, as opposed to listening to what all these outside people are saying. And we don't, and unfortunately, there are many Jews who do not really appreciate or understand what their own identity is. And they end up getting sucked in and falling prey to the rhetoric of those who are against us. And therefore it is essential, and maybe even more essential now than ever, for us to make sure that we provide ourselves and the children with as valid and as deep an education as possible, to ensure that we are all able to live our lives as proud Jews and knowledgeable Jews. And we will hold it there. Have a great day, everyone.